Welcome to Autoblog's coverage of the 2018 Detroit Auto Show. I'm Senior Editor Alex Kirstein, and I'm joined by John, Reese, and James. Today we're going to be talking about all of the debuts and announcements here at the show. We're going to start off with Ranger, which is obviously a big deal. Move into Silverado, talk a little bit about Edge ST and a few of the other reveals, Jetta, Avalon. There's a lot of stuff here to cover. We're going to talk about specifics and highlights. You'll want to stay tuned for all of that. If you want more in-depth coverage, head to autoblog.com where we'll have detailed articles about all of these vehicles. Let's start with one of the biggest reveals of the show, the 2019 Ford Ranger, Ford's return to the midsize segment. We've got a clip of Joel Stocksdale who's going to tell you a little bit more about this really important midsize truck.
Hi everybody, I'm Joel Stocksdale for Autoblog. We're here at the 2018 Detroit Auto Show and we're checking out the brand new Ford Ranger. They've finally shown the US spec version of it and it looks a lot like the foreign market vehicles. There's been a few small tweaks to the grille and to the bumper, but for the most part it looks pretty much like all the other ones. One of the things that's a little bit different is that under the hood it's got a 2.3 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. It's a version of what you'll find in the Ford Mustang and the Ford Focus RS. On the Focus RS it makes 350 horsepower, 350 pound-feet of torque. We're guessing this will make it a little less than that. Ford has said that it will have competitive or potentially best-in-class performance. What we're looking at right here is a Lariat trim level with the FX4 package. The FX4 package adds an extra skid plate up front, more off-road tires, adds a locking rear differential, basically makes it a little bit more off-road ready. The Ranger will be available in XL, XLT, and Lariat trim levels. You'll be able to get FX4 package on a lot of them, and also a few other appearance packages. Ford hasn't announced official horsepower or pricing on it yet. We're expecting that it will start in the low $20,000 range and go up from there.
Let's talk about this truck. It's really a big deal because for a long time the midsize truck market has been dominated by the Tacoma. The Colorado and the Frontier have always been bit players. So what do you guys think? Ranger, is it a win for Ford? Is it going to be a winner in the segment? What do you guys think?
Oh, I definitely think so. I mean, even just for nostalgic reasons, this is a car that people our age, grew up with. Some of us, it was our first car or truck, and I had friends who would work on them, and I missed it. I'm glad to see it back just for that.
Yeah, I mean, when the Ranger was killed off a few years ago, nobody was buying these trucks, but the Colorado, since it returned, the truck segment, I think it's grown by 80-something%. So there's obviously a huge market for it, especially with full-size trucks being as massive as they are. I think it's going to be really important that Ford is back and competing here.
There's also something to be said for them really repurposing a vehicle that's already been on sale.
Right.
So they're bringing it out because the Colorado and the Tacoma were redesigned, rejuvenated the midsize truck segment, and they had the benefit of seeing what had been already done and have a product already that they could jump in with. One thing I would wonder about is the fact that it dates back to 2011. So although it's new for us, this isn't exactly an all-new truck.
Sure.
And I would wonder how it will therefore compare with much newer trucks, effectively.
Yeah, that's a good point. This truck's been on sale in the rest of the world since 2011. The rest of the world is called the T6 Ranger. I believe it's built in, for the rest of the world, it's built in Thailand, I believe. I guess you could say the other side of that coin is it's a proven product. It's been really popular in the Australian market. The Australian market's notoriously tough on trucks. It's been popular in South Africa. I don't know. And also, to your point, it didn't get all new sheet metal. They just kind of lightly restyled it. The lower fascia and bumper is different, the grille is different, and they use a new tailgate stamping. But otherwise, it's the Global Ranger that's dating from 2011. And the criticism I've heard is that that's kind of a plain design. I think it's the rest of the world likes more understated trucks than we like. We want giant belt buckles and giant badges,
Yeah.
and the rest of the world, they're not quite into the exterior farkles quite as much. So
It's interesting because when I looked at it, I went, "That's a good-looking truck."
Yeah,
which probably means that everybody else will hate it.
I think the people who haven't jumped on board the truck wagon yet, because of maybe some of the over-the-top looks, this will win some of them over, hopefully.
I think the one thing that's going to hurt it styling-wise is there doesn't seem to be much that connects it to the F-150. And that might be a good thing, that might be a bad thing, but I think people going in for a smaller F-150 might be a little disappointed by the way that it looks.
Well, since we're talking about Ranger, I think we should take a minute, since it's not here, but let's talk about Bronco for a second. I have two theories that I want to run by you about what Bronco is going to look like. And because we now in the US officially have this T6 Ranger, Americanized for us, I have two ideas of what it could be. One, it could be the Ford Everest, which is a Ranger-based SUV that's sold in other countries. It's literally just like a Ranger, like Tacoma 4Runner sort of thing, where it's just the SUV version of the Ranger.
Chevy S10, Chevy Blazer from back.
S10 Blazer, exactly like that.
That makes sense.
The other theory I have is in Brazil they have something called the Troller T4, and it's a Ranger chassis that's just cut down, and it's wearing this really goofy, like a bad clone of a Wrangler body. So I don't think the body's coming, but there is a shortened version of this chassis that could show up as like a two-door, well, three-door, I guess we count the hatch, but like a three-door, like real Bronco.
I think Theory A sounds a little more plausible.
Theory A does sound more
I
possible.
like the idea of Theory B, though. I would hope for something short wheelbase, something a little nimble, something that would compete with the Wrangler. But yeah, the Everest seems like the likely choice.
I think anything that isn't a completely new design is disappointing. If it's a rebadged blank, doesn't matter what it is, that's sad. It's a Bronco, man.
But if they can,
It should be special.
if they can use an existing design, then we'll actually get it. If they have to create something completely new, they might never even make the effort because it just costs too much.
All right, well, I mean, obviously we're fascinated by the idea of the 2020 Bronco, but let's go to something that actually debuted here at the show. Well, technically just before the show, the 2019 Chevy Silverado 1500. And Reese, you were covering that. You've got details. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you know, because there's a lot we don't know yet. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you know about this truck?
So yeah, we saw the Silverado last month at Texas. It was kind of a surprise reveal, but all we got was a brief shot and a few photos. Saturday we learned the specs and some of the final features and what's really changed. The exterior design is a big break from what came before. The last one was super blocky, real rugged, edged. This one's a lot softer, a lot smoother, a little more angles. I think it's a pretty handsome design, but looking at the interior, it's a lot more of what you know. If you like GM interiors, you're going to like this one. If you don't, you're going to be a little disappointed. But looking at it, it is very obviously an all-new truck, which you really couldn't say about the other one. It was kind of an evolution of what's been going before. But there's new powertrains under the hood, the most notable of which is the 3-liter inline-6 turbo diesel. We don't know specs on that, but GM says it will outperform the competition. So the new F-150 is 240 horsepower and 440 pound-feet of torque, so expect something around there. Other than that, it's a nice new break. It's a big day for trucks.
So there's a lot we don't know about 19 Silverado, but let's talk about some of the stuff we do know. We know the 6.2 is coming back. We know there will be a sporty RST version. And we know that there's going to be some kind of cool exterior styling stuff. They're all getting that sort of roof, end of roof spoiler thing. It's getting the power tailgate. That's an industry first. What are some other things that stood out to you guys about sort of new features of styling?
I really noticed the fact that the trend in the truck world of different grills, different styling elements. It's not just the range topping model gets a different grill or more chrome, or the off-roady version gets different styling. And it almost seems like every single version has, this one has a lot of chrome, this one has a lot of body work, this one has a different grill completely. On the Silverado, it has Chevrolet spelled right out across the front grille, almost like the Ford Raptor does. Definitely shows that different types of truck buyers welcome having different designs in their truck. They don't want the same thing that 900 other thousand people brought home.
And it's not just Chevy that's doing this. I mean, Ram's been doing the sort of different grill, different front end thing for a while. We saw that a little bit. Ford put out a nice video showing us all of the different trims for the Ranger, and as you kind of progress through the different trims, they call that a trim walk in the industry. You can see sort of different front end styling based on what trim you're getting. So yeah, I think that's going to be a trend that continues. I also noticed kind of a neat detail in the upper trim level truck, so above the LT, so the LTZ and the High Country, you get that kind of cool trapezoidal exhaust outlet that's sort of built into the bumper. That's kind of a neat touch.
Now, do we like the hidden compartments in the back seat? I mean, Ram has them once again underneath the floor to store whatever you're going to store underneath there, but apparently Chevy wants to have it now behind your back.
What we really need to check is if the screen goes up like it does on the Tahoe.
Oh, so you have lots of hidden storage to store perfectly legal items.
So the thing that was a little surprising to me about those seat back storage compartments is they're not really that slickly hidden. I mean, there's like a huge gap in the bolster. If you're sitting back on it, you can't really feel it, but there's like a giant gap around the part that swings out, and that might just be what they had to do to make it work, but it's not like the entire seat back folds out and it's completely hidden. It's immediately obvious that there's a pull-out panel right there.
I'm not surprised with GM. I'm sorry, but gaps are one of the things they're known for. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not that the compartments themselves aren't that big. So I did a shortcut video where I was talking about what could go in there, and the GM designers were talking about tablets and small laptops and stuff. And in the back of my truck, I've got tow straps and a portable compressor and stuff. And so people online were asking, like, what about real truck stuff, like jacks? And none of that stuff's going to fit behind that seat compartment. So it really is a place to, just put small, valuable things, electronics that you don't want to be taken out.
That don't fit in the large glove box or the colossal underarm thing.
Exactly. But I mean, I guess it's a little easier to get to than those things. But
perfect spot for survival kit and some food rations.
I guess so. First aid kit or something.
Yeah.
Oh, good point. If you're a prepper, it might be the right thing for you.
For me, the Silverado is the best looking truck at the show. I think the exterior styling is clean, neat. I like the new rounded arches, and especially the front end. The Ram, I think, is a little too overwrought up front. And it's that sort of American big truck sort of face. And I think the slightly more subtle looks of the Silverado are better. But I don't know, what do you guys think about the Ram?
I hate to disagree with you, but I disagree with you. The front end of the Ram is not my favorite, but I do like it better than the Chevy. I don't know, something about the angled headlights and the daytime running lights on the Chevy just aren't my dig. I thought it was going to miss the crosshairs on the Ram more than I actually do, but seeing it in person, I think it looks fine. I like the new headlights. So the front fascia doesn't bother me, it seems, as much as you. The rest of the truck, I think, is really handsome. It's an evolution of what we've kind of known for, the past, 10, 15 years. It's the drop fender's a little higher, the wheel arches, I think, are a little more rounded. But I still think it's a really handsome truck.
I think in terms of the Silverado, I think there's a lot of interesting details in there that certainly weren't there before. But it still is a very flat surface up there. It's just a wall coming at you, especially with the added fuel economy lower spoiler there. And when you get the LT trim with all of that chrome, that is still a very bold face. But again, there are different faces of it.
Right.
Also with when you say it like the Ram, but the Ram also has all those different ones. They had 4 different faces on the 4 different Rams that were lined up there: Rebel and the Limited and the Laramie and whatever that sport one is. That was all body colored, which looked pretty sharp. I kind of like the Ram. I kind of agree with you. It's almost like by getting rid of the crosshairs, in a way, it got rid of its really brash, chrome, big rig look. And it works pretty well with the more sculpted body.
Yeah.
There's no argument any of us can make to get all of us to agree that one of these trucks is more attractive than the other. We're all going to have different opinions, but we do have a little more information for you about what's under the skin of the new Ram. So I'm going to toss it back to Joel. We have a clip from him, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about what's under the hood of the new Ram.
I'm Joel Stockdale for Autoblog. We're at the 2018 Detroit Auto Show, and we're checking out the 2019 Ram 1500. The Ram 1500 is available with 2 engines off the bat. It will either come with a 3.6 liter V6 or a 5.7 liter V8, both of which are available with a 48 volt mild hybrid system. In addition to the 3.6 liter gas V6 and the 5.7 liter gas V8, Ram has announced that the EcoDiesel will return, and the current model is a 3 liter turbo diesel V6. The Ram is available in a wide array of trim levels, and one of the ones that returns is the Rebel, which adds a more aggressive grille. It adds 18-inch wheels with 33-inch tires, Bilstein shocks, locking rear differential, all the various things to make it a little more off-road capable. Also, since this is fully redesigned, the biggest changes are on the front. The grille has changed. There's no longer a crosshair grille. The fenders have been brought up a little bit, but there's still sort of this drop down from the hood into the fenders. And overall, it just has a kind of a softer appearance, but still looks fairly tough.
That's been a lot of truck news. This has obviously been a big truck show. Let's move on to something else, maybe.
We also have the F-150 diesel. Can't get away from trucks. It's the Detroit Truck Show.
Just a few more minutes of trucks. Just bear with us. We'll get to the Bullet
hour and a half
Mustang.
more.
We'll talk about Veloster N. We'll talk about a few other things. But let's go into Ford F-150 diesel. Take it away.
There's an F-150 diesel.
There it is. Okay, Bullet Mustang.
Okay, yeah. Bullet Mustang.
No, the F-150 diesel honestly is pretty cool. I can't believe how many players there's going to be in all the major players, all the major 1500 class trucks are going to have a diesel engine. There's been this diesel renaissance. We thought the Volkswagen scandal legitimately was going to kind of sink the light duty diesel market in this country, and I don't know about you guys, I'm like literally blown away that every 1500 class truck is a diesel off-road.
Ram took a big risk a few years ago with the EcoDiesel, and it seems to have paid off because the other two automakers have really followed suit. I mean, even the Titan, you could argue, even though it's kind of a bigger size, still offers that V8 Cummins diesel. So all the full-size trucks now have some flavor of diesel.
In many cases, 2 flavors of diesel, because don't remember, we still have the heavy-duty diesels with their larger V8s. So yeah, it's an exciting time if you like burning oil, so that's cool.
Okay, so what doesn't definitely have a diesel engine is, as you said, the Bullet Mustang. And it's right there at the front, right when you walk in. It's right next to the 1968 Bullet Mustang, driven by Steve McQueen in the movie. And if you're going to come here to the auto show, that is what you have to see, because it's extremely cool.
That might be the coolest thing at the show.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you're not really into the McQueen thing, and there's been a lot of McQueen King of Cool oversaturation lately, this is legitimately a cool thing. And the backstory, is fascinating. I'll give you the synopsis. Basically, you might remember, if you're a Bullet fan, that McQueen wanted to buy this car back. This was a hero car that was used in the chase scenes. It didn't get super beat up. He wanted to buy it back. He wrote the guy that owned it a letter, the guy that his family's held it to this day. They still have it. And he wanted to buy it. This guy said no. And now we're getting the rest of the story. That's all we knew. That's all we knew for years. This was in the 70s.
And wasn't his wife, the guy who owned it, using it kind of as a daily driver?
Yeah, she was a school teacher. She was driving it to work. This is a car that they estimate is worth upwards of $4 million in its present unrestored condition. And this lady was driving it to her day job on a daily basis. So the car is now completely unrestored. The guy that had owned it and held onto it and wouldn't sell it to McQueen passed away a few years ago. They were going to do restoration with his son. They were going to do it together. That would have been kind of cool, but you know, in some ways I think it's pretty neat that it's in it's, you guys have seen it up close. It's really beat up. I mean, it's pretty much just how it came out of the chute, right? You guys want to...
But it even looks even better, I think, by the fact they have that patina on it.
Oh,
and it's sitting next to the new one, and the new one does look really good. The last generation Mustang early on did have a bullet, but this one looks really good, and it's a muscle car that's green. And if you can ever have a muscle car that's green, get one.
You can also get it in black though.
But it's but green. The correct answer is green.
If you don't buy this in Highland green,
And also, one of our other editors was saying he's a big Mustang fan, that the last bullet was actually available in black too, although I don't know how many people pick that. So that's got some precedent, even though get Highland green. Highland green's the one.
yes.
And the really cool thing about this, I think, is it's not just a cosmetic package. It's not just the torque thrust wheels, the Highland green paint, the lack of badging in the grille. There's also a 475 horse version of the 5-liter Coyote underhood, and the reason the power has been increased is it's using some GT350 parts. It's got the intake manifold with a larger throttle body, some unique tuning, and they've custom tuned the active exhaust a little bit to give it more of a 60s muscle car sound. We heard it in the video. I didn't hear it in person. I wasn't at the Ford reveal, but it sounds awesome. I mean, it's not like I went on the Mustang GT and EcoBoost launch for these 2018 Mustangs, and they already sounded really good. The video that I heard of this bullet, it sounds amazing. It sounds really good.
Which is also important because when this generation Mustang came out, it didn't really sound like anything. It was pretty disappointing.
Yeah, before the facelift, when we got the first Coyote Mustangs, I agree. So it's a big deal. This is a big deal muscle car, and it would, if all these trucks weren't here, this would definitely be the highlight of the show.
Well, even the fact there's a Ford GT. Brand new Ford GT with a number right on the hood, and no one's looking. It might as well be a Fiesta, and it's sitting right next to the McQueen Bullet Mustang with all these trucks around it, and it really says something about what's going on here.
Yeah, the stand with having those two parked right next to each other, like slightly elevated from the rest of the cars. If you guys come to the show, you really, really need to come by.
So I want to take a minute and move the discussion over to the Cherokee, which has just been refreshed. Now, we saw the refresh a little while ago, but we're just finding out sort of what there's other stuff that's been refreshed there. So, Reese, I know you were over there. Can you tell us a little bit about the new Cherokee?
Yeah, so we initially thought it was just going to be a slight refresh, but the big news is a new 2-liter under the hood. We don't know for sure, but looking at FCA's lineup, we think this might be a modified version of the 2-liter that's actually in the Alfa Romeo Giulia. In this application, it makes 270 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque, which is 5 horsepower down on the 3.2-liter V6, but like 58 pound-feet of torque up, which is not insignificant. The 2.4-liter and the 3.2 Pentastar V6 still carry over. All three are mated to a 9-speed transmission that hopefully has been revised, because I don't know if anybody was too hot on it.
No.
Very cool.
And it had some design changes too, right?
Yeah. So when the Cherokee came out in 2013, reviews were mixed on the styling. To
putting it lightly.
Put it kindly. I don't know how you guys felt. I was a little taken aback by that face. The headlights were kind of separated from the turn signals and the daytime runners and placed real low and kind of out, and it kind of gave it a pinched kind of frog face.
But you know what's funny about that? Now that Jeep is backing away from that sort of running light over headlight thing, like if you think about all the other vehicles that kind of picked up that trend and are running with it, think about Juke, and then some of the new stuff out of some of the new Korean crossovers have a very the Kona has a very similar vibe. Even the profile, the way that sort of the sill kind of runs under the greenhouse has sort of a Cherokee flow.
We don't get them, but Citroens actually do all the cacti.
Citroens, yeah. So, like, what are we thinking about the John? Like, what do you think about the way it looks? Do you like it?
I have mixed feelings. I sort of like the way it looks a little bit more like a Grand Cherokee to me now than ever before, which I'm not sure I love. I mean, I think aesthetically it looks a little more mainstream and generic, which in some cases is good, but especially in the back, like the rear end looks better to me. But I just miss the standout look of the Cherokee. I had a '99 Cherokee, and it looked unlike anything else in the Jeep lineup, and that was great. And this looks too much like the other Jeeps, in my opinion.
So they're all kind of collapsing into a design singularity.
I
It's
think so a
interesting
little
because there is so much similarity between the Cherokee and the Compass now. I mean, they are very similarly sized. The Compass actually has a little more interior space than the Cherokee, but when you drive the Compass, it still feels very much more like a Renegade, a larger Renegade, despite its size similarity to the Cherokee. The Cherokee still feels a little more refined, and those engines are interesting because now there's going to be 3 engine options on the Cherokee, whereas the Compass is stuck with the 2.4 and the 9-speed, which really is the main point of difference between those. But it is interesting that you have 2 big power options for the Cherokee in a segment where a lot of cars don't even have an upgraded engine. RAV4 doesn't, CRV kind of doesn't, the 2.4 and the turbo are pretty similar, really.
Yeah. Well, as long as we're talking about interesting designs, John, you were telling me that you saw the Veloster, the new Veloster, the 2019, and we've seen sort of spy shots and teasers and leaked images of that already, and I think at first glance to me, it didn't. I mean, it's very much still a Veloster. It has that kind of weird hatchback shape. So
Very much so. Yeah, I think it really sort of evolves from the previous one. It's not a crazy redesign. The front and the grille is quite different, but overall, it has the same sort of feeling. You look at it and you're like, oh yeah, I know what that is. That's the Veloster.
I just came up here before seeing it and hearing about it at all. Does it still have the 3 doors?
Yes. Yeah. The 2+1. It still has that, which is really cool. It's kind of quirky, not super useful, but I like it. I mean, I liked it in the last car. It's just kind of fun.
have you tried to do the kid seat thing with a Veloster?
I have
recently?
not. No, I have not done that yet.
I think that's
I
what
know.
we need to do. I mean, really, the question is going to be, does that third door help you get a kid in and out?
That was the first thought that came to my head, actually. But yeah, I don't know. It looks good. It looks maybe a little bit more athletic. And the coolest thing is now there is an N model. So there's there's the naturally aspirated. It's a 2-liter Atkinson cycle i4. 147 horsepower, 132 pound-feet of torque. There's a 1.6-liter turbo. That's 201 horsepower, 195 torque. And then the N is a 2-liter turbo. That's 275 and 260 pound-feet of torque. It's got 5 driving modes. We watched a video of it on the track, and the exhaust sounds pretty amazing. It's crackly. It's boomy. It seems pretty exciting, and it's got some nice aero touches and some cool color accents on it too. I think it'll be a lot of fun.
That's a big number, and especially in a car that was, despite the name, was not very performance oriented.
Yeah.
It was always a bit of a letdown given the way it looked. But
I think Hyundai is making a little bit of a pivot. They were talking about how this was bred from motorsports, and they said they're going to have some announcements about Hyundai Motorsports soon. So I'm not sure if the Veloster factors into that, but I think they're trying to get their foot in the door there.
I've been looking forward to this car for a while. I was in Korea back in June for the Kona launch, and we got a backgrounder on the i30N, which is the Elantra Sport, or Elantra GT, sorry, in the US. Europe and the rest of the world gets an N version. That's not coming here. Instead, we get the Veloster. But talking to some journalists that drove it, they were very, very hot on it. I mean, the guy in charge of the program is Albert Biermann, who ran BMW's M division for a lot of years. Like, Hyundai really seems like they're making an effort on this, and really seems to put some serious money behind it. really, really looking forward to driving this car.
It is the last piece of their puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of making great cars, it's the vehicle dynamics. They had the styling, they had the quality, they had the interior, but the vehicle dynamics was the last piece, and it seems they're getting there.
I'd still argue the need to explore lightweighting a little bit more thoroughly. I think weight has always been a bit of a bugbear, but I think it's really nice to see the Veloster truly become a performance vehicle, because I think the Veloster Turbo was always sort of near performance. It was never really a class-leading
Performance
player.
adjacent.
I mean, it was sporty. It just wasn't like a leader within its segment.
Right.
So good on Hyundai for really, I don't know, really delivering on N's promise. I think a 275 horsepower Veloster is legit.
Yeah.
But there's been a lot of competitors for VW GTI over the years, and there's still only one we continuously talk about, and that is, in fact, the GTI. So,
Well, that sounds like a heck of a comparo test that we should definitely do. So stay tuned for that, hopefully,
Yeah.
because that sounds like fun.
That
Do you guys
does
want to
sound
drive them back to back? I sure do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, well, I think this has been a great discussion of a really interesting show, a surprisingly truck-heavy show. And the last piece of the puzzle here is to talk about what we think the winners are. Like, what's the best in show for you guys? And I'm just going to go in order. Let's start with you, James.
well, because this is the Detroit Truck Show, I'm going to go with a truck we have not talked about, which is the Mercedes G-Class.
Oh.
It's the first time in 40 years there's a new G-Wagon. 40 years, that's crazy. This is a car that was originally designed for the Argentinian army, and this one's actually being built for, well, probably housewives in Beverly Hills. But, it has the independent front suspension now. It has modern steering as opposed to something that I would assume came off a tractor, because that's certainly what it felt like to drive. And it looks exactly the same, but it's bigger, and it's going to be better to drive on the road. And they said it'll go up that Schockel run in Austria quicker than the old one.
2.4 parsecs?
Exactly. So it looks the same. It looks really cool. And here at the show, they did have the G-Wagon Final Edition, which was the two-door with the convertible, and that thing looked really kind of cool. And the new one also, I will point out, was matte black, because of course it was.
Has anybody sat there with the door locks yet?
Does it sound like a rifle
Does it
bolt?
click?
That's really important for the G class. I haven't been down there. Has it? I think it's
I've heard that. I've heard that. Did you hear them do it?
No.
Okay.
Do they clack?
It apparently sounds like 4 rifle bolts being.
Okay, so we
being
don't
locked
have
into
someone
place.
down on the floor right now to go to the clack.
Here's some audio right now.
Okay, so Reese, what was?
Unlike your surprise with the G-Wagon, my best of show we actually just talked about was the Veloster N. We knew the Veloster was coming, but the N was kind of a surprise. Like I said, I've really been looking forward to this car. Seeing it here, coming out now is a big plus. I know we've been talking mostly about trucks at the show, but I'm still a hatchback guy, sports car guy at heart, so seeing a new performance car is always a plus.
Now, I should say the Honda Insight as the green editor,
You should.
but
This is like dashboard confessional, right?
yeah,
Bullet screen.
but I'm going to agree with Reese. The Veloster N was my favorite. I had a lot of fun in the first generation of that car. Some wonderful memories of driving the Veloster Turbo. I'm excited to get back in it, and I'm really excited to try out this super hot hatch version.
Yeah, I think I'm pleasantly surprised by how finished and polished the Veloster looks. But I think my best of show, actually, I can't really say that how finished and polished it looks, because it has basically looked the same since 2011. My best of show is the Ranger. I'm actually really jazzed. And I'm almost more jazzed about what it means for the mid-class truck segment than I am about that specific vehicle coming here. And I say that because there's a big asterisk with the Ranger, which we didn't discuss earlier. It only has one announced powertrain, the 2.3 EcoBoost with the 10-speed. So I'm not super sure that I'm going to love that powertrain in that truck. I'm hoping that we get a version of the 3.2 diesel that's in the Transit. It's already federalized. It fits in the Ranger in other countries. It's the top engine in a lot of countries. So kind of a caveat to mine. I still think it's a super important truck. I'm super stoked to drive it, but I hope they sort of decide they need to do battle with the Colorado with the Duramax 2.8 and decide to put a 3.2 diesel into the Ranger. So if you're watching, Ford, give us the diesel Ranger. We're really excited to drive it.
I agree.
Well, I think that about does it for our wrap-up of the 2018 North American International Auto Show. Thanks to my distinguished panel for helping out, and thanks to the audience for watching. If you want all the details, pictures, specs, articles, everything about this show, head to this URL right down here. We have all our show coverage in one convenient place. Thanks for watching.